Yes.
Okay. And
Follow the formula.
And how do we determine what kind of information is a conspiracy theory?
Well, don't accept anything at face value. Do your own research. Find out how many ways you can verify something. How many sources will verify a certain thing, as opposed to another way of looking at it. A lot of conspiracy theories actually are bereft of a lot of valid information. A lot of validation is simply not really possible. No matter what a lot of people may think, they're not necessarily correct in saying, oh, well, this has been proven. Oh, well, this has been validated. Do not accept it as anything like a fact. Accept it as an opinion, as a perspective when you first hear of any information. But take the time, if you are willing, to research and validate how many sources can validate it, and have the discernment to know the difference between an opinion and something that is actually able to be validated with the idea of empirical evidence. Because empirical evidence is nothing more than the idea of understanding a reinforcement of the consensus reality about what you all believe would be true for you. So it's really about looking at what really serves the consensus, what really serves all of you the best, instead of creating the idea of dissociation from the consensus, at least the positive direction of the consensus. So if it contains a lot of confusion, if it contains a lack of reinforcement of evidence from several different sources, then treat it as such and treat it as something that may be more of an opinion rather than a fact.
And if there's fear generated in the information that's given, is that a method of determining whether it's correct or not?
Yes, because even if it is true, at least some of the things that can be true, don't necessarily have to generate fear. So fear may be a general barometer to decide when it is something that is representative of a theory or an opinion, as opposed to factual, evidentiary truth. But the idea is that even the truth in some people can generate a lot of fear. But you have to have the discernment, again, as to whether or not it is something that actually is required to experience fear in something that is true. So you have two ways of determining the idea, by first and foremost knowing that certain things truly do exist as conspiracies, but why should that generate fear within you just knowing that?
Okay, and what's the difference between a conspiracy theory or new information? How do we discern that?
Well, it's the same answer. Look at new information as an opinion. Don't accept it as fact, no matter how many people say that it's true or how many people decide to believe in it. Allow yourself to determine for yourself on your own what the evidence actually is that supports it from several different sources, as to whether it is even impactful in your life at all. Does it divert you from following your passion in certain ways? Does it take you down what many people on your planet refer to as the rabbit hole? Does it distract you from being your true self? Does it get you caught up in the idea of subversive elements and subversive ideas and giving your power away? Does it make you more fearful than you otherwise would be if you simply considered the idea objectively? Look for all the signs that take you out of yourself, that, shall we say, lure you into a kind of cult-like behavior of going along with an idea just because other people are going along with it. Is it actually something that benefits you and serves you in a way that would actually make a difference in your life? Moving forward by acting on the formula will allow yourself to alleviate all of these concerns. Also, in the steps upcoming that we will deliver, there will be actions that will help you make these determinations as to what it is you can focus on that might be representative of actual conspiracies, and how to incorporate your relationship to them in your lives. So we haven't delivered all the steps yet that will actually handle some of the questions you are asking now. But for now, we would simply say, remain neutral, don't assume anything is a fact with new information, do your own research to find out if there are other sources that validate it, and look at what people are saying does validate certain conspiracy theories, because sometimes they're not approaching it in any rational or logical way at all. They're simply accepting another set of opinions and treating them as facts. So you have to look at all of that. For now, that's sufficient. We will supply other ways in which to determine these things in the steps we will deliver that are upcoming.
And is it true that our planet is a flat Earth covered with a dome and surrounded with a wall of ice?
No. Again, a conspiracy theory. Because there isn't really any facts to substantiate that particular vision. The idea of a flat Earth is simply an erroneous way of interpreting that people are starting to sense that physical reality is, in a sense, kind of flat. In other words, it isn't real, it's a projection. But they're interpreting the idea of the flatness of the idea, the flatness of the projection, the unsubstantial nature of the projection, they're interpreting it and projecting it into physical reality. And that's not the case. That's not the issue. Your world is a sphere. But they're taking the idea of their sensing of the flat energy of physical reality, that it's not really real, that it's an illusion, that it's a projection, and they're taking it too far and projecting it into actual physicality. That's not the case. So no, your Earth is not actually a flat disk. But physical reality is a flat thing. It's not real. It's a projection of consciousness. That's why many people are interpreting it as flatness, because it doesn't have the same dimensional substance as spirit. They're just taking it too far.
It's really fascinating.
Yes.
Can you expand on the concept of a you? Like when I say I, what do I mean? Is my consciousness separate from my personality, and how do they relate?
It's not separate, but your personality is an aspect of your overall consciousness. And this is why we say when you ask certain questions, you have to know what level you're coming from when you say I or you. Because again, the personality version of you can ask a question and you can say I, or the soul, in a sense, can be asking the question, and then that's the I you're referring to, the greater being, or the oversoul, in a sense, can be asking the question, and then you're coming from that level of I. So, for example, we often use the concept of the experience of reincarnation to illustrate this point. You can say as a physical person, was I another person in another life? As a physical person, no, you were not. You are the physical person you are. Other physical people exist at the same time because time is an illusion. It doesn't mean the experience of time isn't real, but time itself is an illusion created by your consciousness to experience physical reality. So all physical beings, all physical personalities, all exist at the same time on different frequencies. And if someone exists at the same time you do, then your personality cannot also be their personality. The two are individual personalities. The soul is also an individuation to some degree. So each personality has its own soul. But the oversoul is a multitude of souls, and therefore a multitude of personalities. So the oversoul can say, I have this personality, and I have that personality, and I have that personality simultaneously. But the individual soul and the physical personality cannot really say, I also was that person. So it depends on what level you're coming from, what level the question is coming from, that determines what version of I or you is being referred to. So more discernment about the fact that those exist as different perspectives, as different levels, will help address and alleviate the confusion that may come up when someone asks such a question, by determining what level of I are they coming from when they ask it. at the exterior world that you're projecting, but find no answer to some of the questions in the exterior reflection, you withdraw and go within to your source, to your connection to source, to search for certain answers, to gain new perspectives, to alter yourself, to change yourself, to emerge as a new person. That's a natural thing you can do. It's only when you determine that there's something wrong with doing that, something negative about it, something self-judgmental about doing that and withdrawing to go into that search for answers within yourself, that it becomes depression because you're defining it as something negative. But it's a natural act that allows you to discuss within yourself questions that allow you to find answers within yourself, to connect to things within yourself that you have connections to be more aware of those interconnections that can provide information for you to help you emerge as a new person, to change your perspective, to change your reality, to re-identify yourself, and then come back out into the external projection as a new being, as a new person, and to move forward in your life in that way. So don't judge it to be a negative thing to apparently withdraw for a while, to do that inner search. You will eventually emerge as a new person, and it will guide you and allow you to move forward in a positive way. But if you judge it, if you think there's something wrong with you for doing it, then you can get into the idea of the reinforcing loop that allows you to experience it as depression, and then that makes it much more challenging to get out of because you think it's something that is wrong with you.
Sure, that's very helpful. This question has to do with what could be called karmic debt.
There's no such thing as karmic debt. The idea is that when you recognize that you may be out of balance and you do the actions necessary to bring yourself back into balance, you make the choices that you wish to make to allow yourself to be back into balance, back into alignment with your true vibration, then you have readjusted the idea of the karma. Karma, in its original meaning as a word, means action. So it's about taking the actions to realign yourself. There's no such thing as karmic debt in the way that this question is being asked.
So the idea that someone would come back to Earth with the intention of balancing out karmic negative behavior that they had, or ancestral negative behavior, is this real at all?
Not in the way that it is typically meant, no. You can recognize that there may be imbalance in a society, and you can choose to join that society to aid and assist in potentially balancing it out. But that doesn't mean you have incurred karmic debt. It simply means you're making a choice to be of service to humanity in creating the opportunity for balancing out what has become unbalanced. People look at it linearly because they look at reincarnation linearly from a space-time perspective as if it has anything to do with something you did in a past life, but we have just explained that that's not actually what's happening. So making a connection to other lives, you can use that information and say, well, that was out of balance, and now I can use that information to learn a lesson to help balance what's going on, but you're doing that from the present. It's not that you've incurred debt. You're making a connection to use the information of unbalance to achieve balance, to be of service to humanity and allow it to move forward in a balanced way. So the idea of karmic debt is a very outdated, old-fashioned way of looking at something from a linear perspective, but that's not exactly mechanically what's actually happening. Since everything exists simultaneously, as a spirit, you're simply making a choice to be of service in a certain way that increases the probability of a society balancing itself.
So anything having to do with quote unquote past lives is actually the person making a connection from the present to another version of them, their oversoul, or another being that's not part of their oversoul, for a specific purpose of receiving information that can be useful and relevant in the life at present. Is that correct?
Well said. Exactly so.
Great. So does everyone have to balance out their negative behavior when they're on Earth, or do they balance it out when they go through life review? How does the idea of fairness that humans perceive as being the best, and even other animals perceive fairness as something important, and then the idea that negative behavior doesn't always result in something bad happening to someone?
No, it doesn't, not in a physical lifetime, because that's temporary. But there is always the recognition in spirit of how to use that information to create new choices that have a higher probability of creating balance within the soul. So at some point, whether it's in the physical reality or not, the opportunity for balance is always given, is always available. It doesn't have to be done in the physical life. Ideally, it can be done that way, but it doesn't have to be, because you're eternal beings, infinite beings. You will always have another opportunity to balance things out. Always, if that's what you so desire.
That's great. What could be causing the frequent tears this individual is experiencing during cryptic meditations that you've given? They can't pinpoint any specific negative belief associated with the tears.
It doesn't have to be specific negative beliefs. It can just be the general release of things that have, shall we say, found a home within you during your lifetime, in your upbringing, and releasing all of those things, letting go of the things that in any way, shape, or form are no longer relevant for you. Remember, it's not always about the idea that things have to be negative to let go of them. It can simply be things are no longer relevant for you, and let them go as well. And those also still have chemical constituents within your body that must be washed from your system when you're willing to let them go. So the idea of getting in touch with that true vibration makes you feel like you have come home. And therefore that can allow a response of tears of joy to erupt from you, to wash out of you. The recognition that you are your true self, you have come home. That's the vibration of your home, your true self, your true being, your connection to source. And that can cause an emotional reaction that allows you to really begin to let go of anything that is not relevant for you, anything that is holding you back from being your pure self in your physical reality experience. And that can cause tears to flow. So it's all right.
Okay, and this person is asking the following question. As I've been applying the formula, letting go of beliefs that aren't mine and redefining the ones that are mine, I no longer feel the need to meditate as much because every morning I wake up already feeling connected, grounded, and in a heightened state of awareness. It just comes more naturally to me now without needing to ritually meditate. So their question is, how necessary is meditation? Do we really need to sit every day for however long to do it, as this person is mostly already living their highest joy and excitement?
No, it's not absolutely necessary if your life itself becomes a meditation, which is what you're describing. Now, there are times when you may experience a need for quiet reflection, to ponder something, but that's okay, and that can be the equivalent. But if your life is being lived according to the formula as fully as possible, then your entire life becomes a meditation.
And this person wants to become more aware of their negative beliefs that they're holding on to, that are not for the highest benefit and vibration for them.
All right. Well, the idea again is to have honest self-investigation and ask you, what is it that I benefit by holding on to this? Because you don't hold on to anything that you don't believe benefits you. You let go of anything immediately that you believe doesn't benefit you. So the question is, if you know that you are holding on to negative beliefs that don't benefit you, that can only be in your motivational mechanism that there's some belief making them appear more beneficial than the alternative. Find out what that belief is actually telling you and see that it isn't really making sense. It's just that you have a belief that the alternative, no matter how much you may intellectually know that it would benefit you, emotionally, psychologically, energetically, you think that something worse will happen if you move in that direction. And therefore you hold on to negative things because they are the, as you say, lesser of two evils. They are the more comfortable thing to hold on to because what you believe will happen if you move forward, if you change, you have deemed to be worse than where you are. So if you can find out that dichotomy, find out that difference, if you can discern that by asking the question, what am I getting out of this? What am I afraid might happen if I do move forward, if I do let this go? Then by having those questions and examining yourself with honesty, you can determine why it is you're still holding on to those negative beliefs, why you believe they still serve you to do so.